My name's Jamie Zajac. I currently live in Houston, but I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, so I'm an East Coast girl at heart. I'm an A-team coach. I've been coaching about a year, but I've been in the fitness space since my early 20s. Grew up an athlete. I swam, and then kind of during college needed something to keep me active. And then soon after I graduated college, I got into competing and been kind of competing on and off between growing and putting in a lot of muscle since then for about 8 or 9 years now.
So what was the introduction even for you for the sport of bodybuilding?
Yeah, so I first heard about it through Instagram. I saw some new pros. This was back in 2018, so it wasn't as big as it is now. It was kind of on the earlier end of social media, bringing it to the mainstream. But I followed a couple of fitness influencers who competed and maybe for about a year or two. And then there was one person who went pro and she just looked so healthy when she went pro. And this kind of seems kind of weird to say, but she looked really good. And I said, I want to look like that because she looks awesome. And that was kind of the catalyst, I guess, whether that's right or wrong. That was what got me into it.
Why was there such an emphasis for you on the healthy? Like, oh, she looked healthy. That she looked, more than just, oh, she looked good on stage. She looked healthy. That's something you kind of emphasized.
I saw some other competitors who looked a little bit too lean, like ripped and maybe like closer to 6% body fat. And for bikini competitors, it's too much. And I didn't want to look like that because it was like that just too far, too on the other end of the extreme. Um, and and I feel like when you look full and like full muscle bellies, looking healthy, it just is a much better look, in my opinion. And that's what drew me in.
Was it hard for you to kind of seek out and find some of that more, um, that information that was more for what you were trying to achieve?
Yeah, I think so, especially because now 8 years later, I know so much more than I did at the time. Maybe I was easily swayed by certain people on the internet, and I was naive and believed whatever I saw just because somebody who was making more money, more successful in the industry for a long time was saying one thing. I said, okay, well, let's believe that and take that for what it's worth. So yeah, it's maybe a little bit more challenging to look back and try to remember what I was thinking in that realm. But I worked with a really knowledgeable coach for a few years right when I started competing. And I think I was really fortunate to have such a good experience with it that it allowed me to work through all the mental stuff that I needed to work through and still be competing 8 years later and have such a good mindset about it.
Are you a personal trainer, online fitness coach, or gym owner on the verge of burnout? Are you wanting to grow your fitness business but can't add more hours to your hectic schedule? Introducing Trainer Revenue Multiplier, the premier wealth creation system for fitness professionals that helps you earn more and work less. Visit www.trainerrevenuemultiplier.com today to schedule your free business accelerator session. If you're serious about taking your business to the next level, schedule your call today.
I think you've probably heard about how bodybuilding doesn't create issues, it reveals them. If you're in prep and you're having issues, it wouldn't come from bodybuilding, it was already there. So I definitely experienced that a lot. I dealt with binge eating and trying to stay lean all year round. I used bodybuilding as the escape or as my source of happiness. And so when I didn't have it anymore, it was kind of like, what's left? What's left? And so I had to work through that. And I feel that I'm in a much better spot, 8 years later.
Working through that in bodybuilding, did it feel like it gave you a like a certain structure, a certain like level of comfort knowing like, okay, I know in a sense like my walls are a little padded here. Like I know what to do. I know if I do certain things, it's going to have certain outcomes or it should.
For me, actually, I had to take away the structure. in order to overcome what I was dealing with. I had to stop tracking completely. I still went to the gym and followed a workout split that felt right for me, but I knew that I couldn't follow a diet or any sort of tracking realms. I just ate whole foods. I ate a good amount of protein with every meal, and that allowed me to make peace with my body. I fully accepted where I was at the time. I allowed myself to eat without going overboard because of the mental, I guess, the mental house that I put myself in order to overcome that. And it's kind of like all the walls came down because I just allowed whatever.
Was it challenging at all for you to go from that freedom in a sense to then thinking like, all right, when is it going to be? Like, when is a good time? How do I know when I'm ready to get back into that other thing, that more structured thing?
I was definitely ready to get back into more of a structure. I would say I took that year or two as more of an unstructured off season, and it allowed me to get my head back in the game. I did put on a decent amount of muscle to where my food was high enough. I was killing it in the gym that I was able to get back on a diet and be able to cut relatively easily because I had my mindset back in gear, and then reversed myself, and then I started with a coach again because I knew I was ready to get back into competing.
So that whole time, were you following that year or two you said, were you still following the sport? Were you still, active in the community as far as like online space and maybe even connections that you had made previously?
Yeah, I have a lot of friends that are in the space as well. So I went to a show or two, or like a year, supported my friends that were in prep. So I very much kept up with the sport and had intentions of getting back on stage at some point.
Was it hard for you to it all to be like, oh, I see them doing it, I see what they're doing, and I see kind of, you know, the results that they're having, and even though whether you're in it or not, it's you don't want to go there as far as like relying on that, but was it challenging? Was it a challenge to go to a show or see people online that were, oh, they're leaning out, they're looking good, or they're looking like they're ready to step on stage? It's making me want to do that. Like, was that hard for you at all?
It was a little bit, definitely where I was, peak off season, seeing other people as lean. It made me feel like, wow, I definitely want to see myself that lean. But on the other hand, I also knew that I needed the time away to focus on building life, doing things that you can't do in prep. And I made peace with that decision that way because I knew that I couldn't follow the plan. So I was fully just living life and enjoying that piece of it. And then towards the end of that phase, I was so ready to get back into the structure and follow the nutrition plan again.
Were there specific things you mentioned, kind of stuff that you couldn't, it's harder to do when you're in a prep or just more in depth in the sport? Were there certain things that you kind of had like on like a bucket list or like I want to do this before I do get back into it?
I don't know if there was one specific thing, but I had just moved to a new city. I moved from Boston to Houston. So I really just wanted to be able to make friends, be more social without any restrictions on I can't eat that, I can't drink that, I have to go to the gym at 6, so I can't go out, that type of thing.
What was the difference in the communities from Boston to Houston as far as the fitness communities go?
It's a big difference. I grew up in the suburbs just north of Boston, but right before I moved down to Houston, I lived in South Boston. It's very much a city in terms of it's all on top of itself. You have to take public transportation or walk to get around. So I found it challenging to get to the gym in a schedule that works for me because I was still working a corporate job. And I found that there were so many people who went to the gym, it's an active city, but the bodybuilding community is very small in Boston. So it was hard to find people that had similar goals. And in Houston, there are so many bodybuilding gyms, just cool gyms in general to check out. There's a lot of big, really big popular gyms here too. Um, and they're just fun to go to spend the day at. There's thousands of people that are like-minded, have similar goals, that are friendly. That was another thing that is different about Boston versus Houston. And everybody is so much more welcoming and easy to talk to in
Interesting.
Houston.
Being in Texas too, have you checked out any of the other, big gyms just around the state?
Yeah, a few weeks ago, I was in Austin. I was at Lift ATX, which is a pretty cool gym. In December or a few months back, I was in Dallas, and there's a new Absolute Recomp out there that is brand spanking new, and it's really, really nice there. There's another gym in Dallas that I went to over the holidays. I think Destination Dallas, which is a pretty cool gym that I went to. All of the gyms in Houston, I've at least gone for a day pass.
Getting to Texas and Houston in particular, did you feel like having all of that around you, did you feel like you started to level up on like a mental level, on a like informational and educational level, and as well as then translating into like your competing and probably as well, looking into the coaching side too?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when you surround yourself with people who are so much smarter than you, have a little bit more experience in the industry, whether as coaches or athletes, you naturally pick up on things they're consuming, whether media, books they're reading, and it forces you absorb that information, or they tell you about a really powerful book they read and you want to read that too. So it definitely opened my eyes to a new side of the industry that I didn't see before, being so isolated, quote unquote, in the Northeast. So it was very cool, especially at the time. I was still very much corporate mode. I didn't think that I wanted to coach at the time. So it was cool to be an athlete and have so many friends that were doing cool things in the coaching space as well.
Are you a personal trainer who wants to scale and grow your business online? Have you been coaching online for years, yet don't know how to incorporate online into your current business model? Introducing Trainer Revenue Multiplier, the premier wealth creation system for fitness professionals that helps you earn more and work less. Visit www.trainerrevenuemultiplier.com today to schedule your free business accelerator session. If you're serious about taking your business to the next level, schedule your call today.
And I always say the fitness industry is the gateway drug, or getting into fitness is the gateway drug to improving the rest of your life, because you start to feel better and then you start to think better, or uh, are you approach an obstacle and somehow you either fail, or most of us in the fitness space figure out how to get over that. And that overcoming that obstacle is you leveling up and developing personally, growing, and you experience that for the first time and you chase it, and you want other people to feel the same way that you feel.
For you, when you got back into it, was there a different feel? Was there a different, like, how would you kind of compare when you first got into bodybuilding, the process and all the kind of things that you went through to getting back into it?
When I first started getting into competing and training harder, tracking all my food more meticulously, getting all my steps in, it very much felt like chores that I had to do in order to achieve a certain body type. And that was where I was wanting to go, was chasing a certain body type. And it felt very difficult for me. It was hard, and I was doing it anyways, despite the challenge, because I was dedicated to that goal. Whereas now, after working through all the mental stuff that I went through, it feels so much easier. It's a lifestyle. I don't think about it. I just do it because it's my normal. And even if I do go out to eat, my approach is so much healthier where I can eat what I actually want to eat and it's what's going to make me feel good. And it's it does feel easier now. And I hope I'm articulating that well. Whereas in the past, it was very challenging and it felt very much like a chore. And I very much needed to go through that personal growth period in order to get where I'm at now. I very much feel able to coach somebody through what I was going through. Whereas if I had never experienced that, I would not be able to empathize with how they're feeling, the thoughts that are in their head, the obstacles they're facing, the thought patterns, or anything.
And I think it sounds like you definitely appreciate the process now and you find joy in it. But is if you had to say like I could do without one if I could have one or the other only, would there be one?
Well, for me, I love training and training hard. So that's you had to train in the off season, you train in prep. So I'm happy with that. If I could do prep without doing any cardio, that would be great. I'm not loving cardio. I try to make it as enjoyable as possible, but I guess in that way, the off season would be more of my favorite for me. But show day is for me so much fun. You know, you have your friends there, you're showing all of the work that you put in over the past, 4, 6, maybe 8 months, and all the years leading up to that to show all the muscle that you've put on. It's fun to get all glammed up. So I like it all, I guess. I'm not one of those people that has a goal of being on the Olympia stage. I don't see that for myself, at least in the spot where I'm at now. Right now, my goal is to win an overall. If I win an overall, I'll be very happy. And at this point, I want to win an overall and then see what happens from there. I'll be happy if I know that I gave it my all and that's all I can ask of myself. You can't control who else shows up, how they prepared, what they look like. You can't control if your tan looks wonky. Maybe there's a mistake in the chemicals and you put in the work, but something happened and you can't control that, all the outcomes.
There's certainly a lot that goes into the show. Is that was that something for you that was overwhelming at first?
Extremely overwhelming, especially because I didn't have any close friends that could go to the show with me that knew bodybuilding or what a show entailed. I had a coach who was telling me what to eat, what to expect, when to check in with him. So from that standpoint, I was covered. But being at a show, I hadn't even gone to a show as a spectator before that. So I was even more lost. And it was very overwhelming to see all the other competitors who looked so much better and so much more professional. And I felt very much like, ah, so overwhelmed and a little freaked out.
How did you manage the feelings of maybe a little fear and anxiety and nervousness? How did you have any specific things that, maybe you did or your coach told you to do or just moving forward you kind of developed?
I definitely had nerves on stage. I was a dancer, so I wasn't completely foreign to me being on stage with all the lights and makeup being judged. But knowing when to be backstage or interacting with all the other competitors, that was very nerve-wracking for me because I felt very much like this is my first show and I don't know what I'm doing type of thing. But it was 2019, so I'm trying to think back to exactly what I did. I think it was really just to do it and learn from the mistakes type of thing.
I've heard a lot of people say they didn't look back at their first show, like if it was recorded or people took video, they didn't look back at it. Is that something that you did, or did you, look at those things to either just get the full experience or learn from it, or, what was your take on that?
I'm glad that I don't have any videos. I'll say that. Um, for the first couple years after that show, I looked back at my stage shots pretty embarrassed about the way that I looked. But now I look back and I say that was a really powerful experience for me because it allowed me to grow through what I needed to grow through in order to get where I'm at now. I look back at the pictures now and see so much growth that it's not as painful to look at anymore.
So getting back into it, kind of, I guess, in some ways, the second time around, did you feel a sense of like, I've been here before and this is comfortable and this is like a good place for me in a sense? Or like, what did you still have that feeling of nerves and that kind of thing?
I was still a little bit nervous, but I traveled to Texas at the time because I was still living in Boston, and my coach was there, and I had three or four other teammates who were also competing in the same show. And that changed everything. Having people there with you that knew what was going on, that were in the show, there also to support you, and you can vice versa. That made so much of a difference. And it dropped a lot of the nerves that I was feeling. It made the show a lot more fun because backstage you can chat, relax, pump up together, work on posing, check in, all that entails. And it dropped a lot of the nerves, and that made a huge difference, was just having people there that knew what was going on and were supporting you with whatever.
So at what point did the coaching thing start to pop in your head as like, this is something that, I kind of am really starting to get interested in. I really want to start to kind of pursue. This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout.
It was about maybe 2 years ago. I'm an auditor, CPA, so I work in a corporate setting, and it is, for me, pretty unfulfilling. And I was going through busy season or tax season and feeling ending my days feeling so bad, you know, feeling like I wanted to do more, feeling like my purpose was bigger than just sitting at my desk looking at Excel all day. And I heard so many people in the office talking about how they wanted to lose weight and saying they were going to cut all their carbs and do an hour of cardio before work. They're going to do juice cleanse. And I'm picking up on all of these conversations and giving them advice. Don't do a juice cleanse, eat more protein, go for a walk, maybe lift some weights a few times a week. And even just picking up on those little tidbits of information, they started to see some results and feel a little bit better. And it kind of twinged something in my brain that said, okay, maybe I can help a little corner of my universe and make a difference and actually feel fulfilled by what I'm doing, because I do have the knowledge, the experience to help women feel better. There was a lot of self-doubt. There was a lot of time in between that decision because I didn't really use social media before I decided that I wanted to start coaching. And that is, posting on social media is what you have to do. You have to be able to market yourself. So learning how to market myself is still an ongoing thing, but that was probably the biggest hurdle for me to make the decision and then actually start. Being okay with posting myself online was something I had to get over as well. I don't think it took less than 6 months, but there's definitely a lot of time between the decision and the actual
Kind of pulling the trigger.
start point. Yeah.
So with your background, kind of with with a CPA brain, if you will, thought process, how did that impact and how does it impact the way that you think about your coaching more maybe as a business versus just like I do coaching, or because a lot of times people have like one side or the other, one set of experiences or the other, and you kind of have a little bit of both.
Yeah, I think I don't do taxes. I do audit, so I don't have the tax knowledge to bring to it. But working in audits, you definitely get a picture of how a business works. That I'm grateful that I have that experience and background to bring to my coaching. But being an accountant, things are black and white. So I had to unlearn a lot of that and learn how to operate in the gray and be a little bit more creative.
Getting into getting those first clients and starting to really work with people and making a difference in people's lives, and starting to maybe fulfill and feel like you're, fulfilling your purpose in a sense. Like, how did that change the way that you started to feel about, the work that you were doing and just the value that you were bringing in general?
It's so, so rewarding. I helped my cousin. He was one of the first people that I was coaching, and he's in high school and he grew up a chubby kid. And when he first asked me for some workouts that he could do in the garage. So I gave him some workouts. And then he started to get more into it. He got a gym membership. I gave him a split. He asked me about macros, so I started teaching him how to track macros. And then he was updating me on his weight loss progress, and he had lost 50, 60, 70 pounds, and he was keeping it off. And then by the time he kind of plateaued in his weight loss, so we increased his calories and entered a little growth phase. And it was a way for us to bond in a way that we hadn't bonded before, which was really cool because he's a 16, 17-year-old kid. I'm 28. I live on the other side of the country. There's not really a lot of time or space for us to get to know each other. So I was really grateful that he got into it. And now I'm not the only fitness freak in the family. It's the both of us now. And it was really cool to have that, share that experience with him and teach him from what I think is the right way so that he can learn a good foundation. And from there, I took that experience as a bit of social proof that it's not just me. I do know what I'm doing, and got a few free clients that I helped transform and help them lose weight, teach them a little bit of the what I think proper way to do things instead of what they're hearing in the media. And yeah, it's so rewarding to be able to change someone's life in the way that my life was changed
Yeah.
by coaching. You could have somebody that has a transformation and they just want to lose 20 pounds to feel a little bit better. But by them feeling a little bit better, they act completely different in their life in a good way. Maybe they have more confidence to speak up in meetings, or they have the confidence to end a toxic relationship, to stand up for certain boundaries that they want to set. And it goes so much deeper than just what they look like, because they have that body, and that body and how they feel about their body affects everything in their life.
Best of luck to you, and best of luck to the whole industry to continue to have a positive influence on the world. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing a little bit about your journey tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. If you want to, before you head, if you want to share your socials or anything like that where people can connect and find you, you can go ahead and do that.
Sure, my Instagram is at Jamie Zay, Jamiezay, and our I coach for A Team. The A Team website is ateamathletes.org, and you can find us there. Go to Jamie And yeah, that's it.
If you're tired of searching for a coach or trainer, somebody who knows what they're talking about and has experience, make sure you go check out the new Coach's Corner on weightroompodcast.com. You can find quality, qualified coaches to help you achieve your goals, whether that's in bodybuilding or just general fitness. Stop wasting time and start achieving your goals today. The link to the Coach's Corner is down in the description below.